Okay, so next ace high flops I want to look at will be ace jack 9, ace jack 9 rainbow here, ace jack 9 two-tone in the mid, and ace jack 9 monotone on the right. Let's start with the monotone because it's the simplest. Basically decreasing sizing to one big blind with our entire range. As we see, it does have a bit of checks and a bit of half pots, but same idea as on ace queen jack or the monotone flops. We basically can decrease the sizing because other player has a lot of flushes on the flop. So if we look at one big blind only, so the EV here is 3.08 is GTO. One big blind only, it will be betting almost its entire range, 3.026. So it's a bit worse, but if we bet our entire range, again, people won't be raising enough with these queen 5 type of hands, I think, and 5-3, 4-3, etc. So it makes a lot of sense to be betting one big blind only, I do believe. If it raises, I'm guessing that it's gonna barrel a lot with everything except the 4s. Yeah, pretty much barreling everything except the 4s. Cool. Now let's get to the interesting stuff, which is going to be suited and rainbow flops. So these are the GTO solutions. As we see, it is one of the most complicated flops to be analyzing. These connected ace-high boards in general look extremely complicated. They are using 3 different sizings here. And I even rounded it here, so it just 3 different sizings with checking. It's just not an easy strategy to remember, so I had to figure out what type of strategy do I want to employ. So let's use this one now for some comparisons. Let's pick the mono ones firstly. So we got one big blind and large. Ace jack 9, rainbow half pot only. Okay, so here we are. EVs of each of these strategies: 3.570, 3.564, 3.569. So basically no difference in the EVs of the strategies. If we bet half pot with our entire range, we can pretty much bet our entire range. It's not going to be a big difference. Here, if we use only 2 sizings, this also seems quite viable. The problem is, again, we do need to create some form of a check-back range. And I was also looking at ace 10-7, one or large. And ace 10-7 is kind of similar to ace jack 9. The difference is that here we basically don't need to create a check-back range at all. And so ace jack 9 and ace 10-7, they both have 2 high cards and the third card is connected. So this is the main difference between these boards and other boards. So ace jack 9, ace 10-7, ace queen 8, whatever, these type of boards all have connectivity between all 3 cards. If there's a second Broadway card and it's disconnected, I really like to employ this strategy with 2 different bet sizings. However, yeah, but here, even if we use 2 sizings, they still need to call a bunch of 9s. I mean, but not folding 10-8. So I think that on these specific boards, it does make sense to use more of a half pot only strategy. So half pot without full range makes a lot of sense on these type of boards, rainbow and suited ones. On monotone ones, we would just be betting one big blind without range because they're more similar to like ace queen jack than ace king 5 or ace queen 5 or ace jack 5, whatever. They're more similar to the ace high straight possible boards, Broadway straight possible boards, because we have so many of these high cards, and we're also going to have so many of the draws, and we want to get value with aces, with jacks, with overpairs, and we want to not get raised without draws, and so with such a huge equity advantage, it just makes sense to me to be betting half pot with our entire range. I don't think people will necessarily be misplaying too much. I mean, you know, we bet half pot, they might have to fold 9-8 or 9-7. Maybe some people will call them too much. I don't think people will be folding these these strong gut shots, really. I mean, maybe you'll see somebody who's calling 10-7 too much or something. But in general, I don't think people will, people will probably still raise Jack-9. Maybe Ace-10 they'll call, I don't know. But the main thing is, I think that people, I don't think people will be misplaying too much, even if we do bet half pot with our entire range. But it's not going to be a problem because we're still getting a lot of value with our aces, and if we do have an overpair, we're still getting lots of value as well. So I think it won't be too big of a deal. Where's ace 10-7? Let's look at ace 10-7, half pot only. It's going to be the same general idea, like they can fold more of their sevens now. They shouldn't fold like strong gut shots. Jack 8 is still calling, but hands like 6-8 and 6-9 would be folding. Can consider folding Jack 7, to be honest. So again, I don't think people will be misplaying too much, but our range gets a lot of advantage here, and I wanted to find a simple strategy that we can just apply. Like, it can be pretty complicated to have different types of ace-high boards, and then, you know, use a different strategy everywhere. And also, I think it's interesting to be using half pot. Like, some of the hands we want to be betting large with may not be too intuitive here. I mean, betting large with like 10-9 of clubs, for example, isn't very intuitive. And really capping ourselves with the weaker range. I don't know. I think both options are actually fine. But it's not like people will be making mistakes against either size either. Like, if we bet small, like, people will raise enough of these hands if we bet small. It's not like they need to add too many combos, like maybe 8-7, but really that's about it. Like, people will be raising Jack 9 and Ace 9 and Ace 10 quite often, I think. People will be calling like 10-7 against a small bet, so I don't think they'll be making big mistakes here against a small bet. Against a large bet, I mean, they have to start folding King 10, 10-8 still calling, 10-7 folding, but they fold the same amount of nines as if we just bet half pot with our range, so I don't think we're taking advantage of much. They might be even more inclined to fold, actually, so they might actually play perfectly against a large bet. yeah, I think they're going to play pretty well against the large bet too. So basically, no matter what strategy we pick, I think they're going to play pretty well no matter what we pick. And so we might as well pick a simpler strategy, which is to bet half pot with our entire range, pretty much, and go from there. So one thing we could do is maybe we could look at the difference between monotone, the difference between suited and rainbow flops. So betting half pot the entire range, 99% of the time. Let's see. So out of position, we'll call less on two-tone boards. Okay, one kind of interesting phenomenon that we can notice immediately is that out of position can fold more sevens against half pot, full range, because we have so many more hands to continue now. We've got more straight draw plus backdoor combos. We've got more flush draws, obviously. And so it just makes way more sense to be folding more sevens now. So out of position should be folding more sevens on a two-tone board than on a rainbow board. The value of pairs goes up when there's no immediate draws. That makes a lot of sense. Hands like I don't know. And now, like, some of these draws with backdoors might be good hands to be using as like a raise, for example. So 9-6 with the 6 of hearts, decent hand to be raising with. And since we want to raise more with our hands, like 10-7, and get more value with those, because in position should have more hearts now. So we're more incentivized to raise with value, and therefore we can also raise more of our flush draws. Generally, the flush draws want to have like some extra equity, like a combo draw, but we don't need to raise too much, but raising sometimes makes some sense. And yeah, before we had to continue all the time with a hand like Jack-9 on rainbow boards. We have to continue all the time with Jack-9 because Jack-9 is a strong draw, like a strong gut shot, and a strong gut shot is good on rainbow boards, but on a two-tone board, a hand like Jack-9 just won't be that valuable anymore. Jack-9, Jack-8, these hands go down in value when there's much better draws and much better hands available for us to call. Let's just assume that out of position is going to call. Maybe we could look at a blank turn. So we could look at a 2 here. So they obviously check 100%. There won't be any block betting on these turns, I'm sure. Half pot is used quite often, as is 3/4, as is full pot, so pretty confusing strategies. I mean, open-enders generally want to be checking back. Flush draws are kind of mixing. Interesting that most 10s will be going for thin value on the turn. So it is a good idea here to be splitting our sizings, and basically, so I don't think here 3/4 pot really makes too much sense. So I'm going to remove that. So like, this is a pretty connected board where GTO is actually doing something that I don't see it do too often, which would be to barrel thin with second pairs. So As we see on the rainbow board, king, like any 10 with an over to the 10 is going to be barreling half pot. Jacks and queens will be barreling half pot. Aces, half pot. Ace 10, like two pairs will be barreling half pot. And then yeah, two pairs barreling half pot. Not bluffing king 2. And then we're just potting with, like, I don't know, king high with an undercard, for example. Potting with like 9-6 and 8-6. These are the weakest of our draws, but we still should be checking back all the time with Jack 9, 8-9. So these stronger gut shots, yeah. We want to barrel with Queen Jack, but check back with King Queen. King Queen does have a bit of showdown value. And yeah, I think it's pretty intuitive once we have two sizings of half pot and full pot on this turn. So when we use half pot on the flop, it's important to take note of what turns we can be, like how the turn ranges will be constructed. We will be checking back still, you know, a decent amount of air. Although it looks like if we have an undercard to the 7, like, we almost always just barrel with it, so check back more with an overcard, basically. So we're a lot more polarized in these instances. Makes sense. And then, as we see, the strategy here really isn't going to change much. Here we have two flush draws available, but apart from that, like in terms of what we want to do with our value hands, nothing really changes. Still checking 8-9, Jack 9, still barreling 8-6, and 9-6. So we're still barreling sometimes with these 1 over, so yeah, seems reasonable. If we pot it, he should be sometimes calling with a 10, well, especially with a flush draw, but even like a hand like 10-8. Here he has to call like over half of his 10s, like he needs to call 75% of his 10s. Here he's calling only half of his 10s and like folding most third pairs. So they should react slightly different to pot. So, and if their reactions to the sizings are indifferent, then obviously we want to be more value heavy with the larger sizings. Half pot sizings, they should be calling basically all 10s and even still a lot of 7s. Okay. Nothing too surprising there. Let's see, maybe if someone's using half pot as the only sizing, they can start folding some 10s. That would be interesting. Nope, half pot is just too good pot odds, we just cannot fold a 10 to half pot. Alright, that's good to note. Let's rebuild this branch. What other turns may I be interested in? Here I'm definitely interested in like a heart. So let's do the 2 of hearts because it's just, you know, it's gonna be It's going to be the flush completing turn, so I think that could be quite interesting. Okay, so a bit of donking, but I don't. It's really minor donking, so I don't think it will make a big difference. People are unlikely to donk here. So half pot on the third heart. Still want to barrel with most of our aces for value. Ace 8 and better, basically. Not thin barreling with tens anymore, really. Unless it's got like a heart to go with it. So like Queen 10. Queen 10 with the 10 of hearts makes some sense to be barreling, for example. Yeah. So tens with a heart. Maybe King King with the King of Hearts, although now it's going for a block bet, so again a bit complicated. So I'm gonna do two things here. I'm gonna make this guy check his entire range. I'm gonna get rid of. I mean, actually, I feel like if he checks his entire range, he might block bet a bit more. I want to confirm that first. So let's just calculate this and. Okay, so result is here now. Still half pot only, and well, strategy hasn't changed much. Barreling ace 8 plus for value. What might it check? Some of the strongest aces, like ace queen or ace jack without a heart, protecting its check back range, checking pocket aces. And it's checking a lot of nothing, right? Like it's checking just a lot of air, especially with two overcards. Just gonna try to realize the equity with two overcards, basically. I mean, most of the two overcards actually have some kind of a straight draw, so it makes sense that we want to check back some straight draws. Still barreling like air without straight draw, like the worst ones, like Queen 5. Those will be it's totally polarizing its range of bluffs still, even though the sizing won't be that polarized. That does make sense. All right, let's just say like a total blank comes on the river. I don't know, 4. I wonder, let's say we're betting, will aces jam? Yes, aces will jam. Even ace queen is jamming. That's interesting, man. So it's checking back ace queen and ace jack in order to jam. I'd feel a lot more comfortable like barreling these. I don't mind checking back aces sometimes. It's just kind of isolating ourselves against worse. Oh no, sorry, that's what we were betting ourselves. Yeah. Alright. So let's say villain is blocking. If he's block betting, we would call our ace. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. And then raise with aces. Like we'd call the 1 pairs and then raise like 2 pairs plus. That makes a lot more sense. And then he might bet half pot sometimes, like same strategy. 3/4 shouldn't be used. And then if he jams, we have some aces. We can protect ourselves with calling now. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Bet check bet line. Now we've got some aces in our bet check bet line, although we did already have ace 6 and worse in it before. Okay, no, it makes sense to be checking some ace queen now, I guess. Although I'm still not sure if I'd be able to do that in game. And are we bet check betting? Like we're bet check betting quite often actually. Looks like 2/3, 3/4 of the pot will be the bet check bet sizing on the river. And it's a pretty interesting sizing for sure. Looks good. I do like it. And basically if we've got something like jack high or worse, yeah, jack high and worse definitely betting, and queen high even can turn itself into a bluff about half the time. Alright, alright. Okay, good. I feel good that I analyzed that spot. I think blank turns should be kind of intuitive. I don't want to spend too much time analyzing like turns and rivers and all that, because right now all I want to do is like find out what I think is just the best strategy to create overall across all ace-high boards on button versus big blind, 25 big blind deep situation. And so that's what I'm doing right now, and I'm going to create a summary at the end. Anyways, let's wait for this to download and we can quickly go through like a blank turn on the rainbow ace 10-7. So half pot, 3/4, both sizings look fine. Barreling for thin value without tens makes a lot of sense. Especially if they will be calling with worse tens. Yeah, especially if they're going to call with all their tens. We should be barreling a pretty big sizing, basically. Let's look at our air. That's the most unintuitive. I mean, on a blank, like over here, aces still have a ton of value, so we're just not slowing down. Just not slowing down. With any of our aces, we're just going to keep barreling. We might be betting smaller. Actually, no. We're going to bet big sometimes with another ace, just intending to check with these weak ones. Okay, let's look at our air. What do we barrel in terms of air? Okay, so again, like if we have some kind of a straight draw, generally inclined to be checking it back, barreling like complete trash using a very polarized strategy. This is something a lot of people won't do. They'll kind of do like the opposite. But I mean, you know, it's so that we can have we're intending to triple barrel with a lot of these hands, I'm assuming. Like, let's see another blank. I don't know, maybe not so blank, maybe like a jack. But yeah, it's gonna basically jam all of these nothing hands. Well, as long as it's jack high or worse, like one of the weaker the kickers, the more it's gonna jam. Let's see another blank, like a 3, because now the jack high is gonna be just a high card. So yeah, jamming jack high and worse. I mean, we actually won't have that many bluffs. Like a lot of the bluffs will just be like, you know, our suited hands that we did see bet on the flop. Alright, cool. Yeah, here we were also barreling pretty much all of our aces, and I used a two-sizing strategy of half pot and full pot. Here we might not want to use full pot as much, so maybe just using 3/4 as our only sizing. I don't know, that's getting complicated, and I don't want to go too deep into like just one flop texture today. Just want to find overall strategy for all ace-high boards. So we covered ace 10-7 and ace jack-9, I think. We generally like half pot only on rainbow and two-tone boards, and then small on monotone boards, which I'm not showing it, but that was my conclusions. Although on rainbow and two-tone boards, like the two-sizing strategy does also make sense. So it's whatever we prefer, basically. All right. Next, I want to look at ace 9-4. Ace 9-4 rainbow, GTO. Ace 9-4, two-tone GTO. And ace 9-4 monotone as well. So I think this was just one big blind, the monotone one. Oh, no, it wasn't. Okay, so ace 9-4 was kind of like the exception. Because it's so confusing, basically. I mean, you know, the rainbow one wants to bet one big blind everywhere. This one wants to bet half pot quite a lot. But it's also mixing some one big blind. And two-tone is like mixing one big blind and half pot. And so I think the reason why is simply because of the flush draw here. So I was suspecting that ace 9-4 might have wanted to use some big bets, like even the rainbow one, because we have so many nines in our range still. Like nines is the bottom of the range that we open, offsuit nines. And so I thought we'd still be playing a large bet strategy here, but it surprised me to see that on a rainbow board that's not true. It's just because the board is so dry now, and like I guess what should he be having a lot of nines? Like it's not like he has too many nines either, and yeah, it's such a dry board now that we want to be betting our entire range, and even if like we wanted to get extra value with an ace, we just have so many other hands, and it just benefits from betting small with our entire range, I guess. So I think ace 9-4 is a pretty bad example because it's kind of the exception, basically. So I picked up some other boards like ace 9-4 is ace 9-4 is a completely disconnected ace high flop. Like everything is disconnected. The ace is disconnected to the 9, which is disconnected to the 4, and so on these boards, you know, ace 7-2 might be a better example. So ace 7-2. So let's move on to ace 7-2 then. Ace 7-2. Alright, so now, as we see on ace 7-2, even two-tone, we're going to be using a one big blind sizing everywhere. So it would be, I think it would be the same with ace 8-2. I didn't really analyze it but too much. But like basically on completely disconnected boards where the second card is like an 8, 7, or 9, and the third card doesn't have any straight draws, it makes sense to be using one size only, because since they have no straight draws also, it's not like we need much protection with our aces. So, you know, we just get them to call more with maybe some backdoors, some king highs, and then like we're gonna keep barreling on turns quite often. But generally, so these are the some of the type of structures where I think it does make sense to be betting small only. Okay, here it's got half pot only, but like, I think it can be, I mean, not half pot only, but a mixed strategy. But I think to keep things simple, on these type of boards, I would use one big blind only still on monotone boards. One big blind only here also. So here we go small only with our entire range, and his strategy, so he should be calling quite a lot still. Like, he shouldn't really be raising much. He can't really raise much because we still have all the aces in our range. All the overpairs, like he doesn't have too much fold equity. Although, I don't know, he's supposed to raise sometimes with like these weird backdoor flush draw plus backdoor straight draw type of hands. But really, he shouldn't be raising too much. Like, I mean, these two pairs are kind of standard to raise. But he should call all two overcards plus a backdoor flush draw, which I think some people might not do. Like, I can see some people folding Jack-8 suited here, for example. I can see, I don't know, for the king highs, some people may call King-10, some people might fold, some people might also call King-5, and some people might fold, so I think the kings are really quite dependent, and should be calling all king high with a backdoor flush draw as well. So I think they probably won't make too big mistakes here, but it's just a flop where it doesn't make too much sense to be increasing our sizing. I mean, if we did increase our sizing, then it should probably be with our entire range, and at that point we start value owning ourselves. So I'd stick to a one big blind everywhere. Same for suited boards. Suited boards. Hello? This is broken. Alright, monotone boards. If we bet one big blind everywhere, notice we still do need a bit of a checking range, but yeah, just bet your entire range should be fine. And again, notice this weird thing where they should be check raising a ton. Like, this is why I actually like to bet one big blind on monotone boards now, on these boards, ace-high boards from this position. It's because they need to have such a wide check raising range. Like, not only should they raise like their flushes, right? They also need to just raise so many of these like gut shots, like these weird bottom pair plus gut shot backdoors. They need to raise like queen 6 with a 6 of hearts. I mean, with a queen of hearts. Yeah, it's actually just insane how much they need to be raising. And so I really like on monotone ace-high boards just going one big blind. And then here we are a 7-2 two-tone, just, you know. Also, he should be raising small here, if he does raise at all. And the hands he should raise, well, he should actually raise some like king 5 with a king of hearts, queen 5, king 3. So he's gonna have less hands to fold because the boards are so dry that the only obvious draws are gonna be flush draws, obviously. So we can now fold more of these back doors. So here Jack-8 of diamonds would be folding. Here Jack-8 of diamonds would be calling. So we're folding more back doors here, but that's only because we have so many more immediate draws, and instead we're going to raise with like king 5. So it might be kind of standard play here, but on two-tone boards I think people might actually not be raising enough. Well, definitely not with bluffs. I mean, raising a few combos of flush draws too, but check calling quite a bit of them as well. Yeah, raising like 5-3 of hearts, for example, is quite obvious, I think. But these queen 4 offsuit with the queen of hearts, that is not very obvious, I think. So I do like betting one big blind only, entire range, even on two-tone boards where it would sometimes be betting half pot. Okay, so I think for these disconnected type of boards, we have a good idea of what our flop strategy wants to be then. I will move on then.